This was all it took to undermine me. This little hat. You might think, pull it down lower over your head. I say, leave it perched up there like a wee bobbin top. I hope you enjoyed that. A day in the life of old Russ, me. What do I do? What's my spiritual practices? I've been asked that. Here is the answer to it. My first priority, particularly as a person that has 2 young children, is prayer and meditation. On awakening, I ensure that before I get into this little guy, my old telephone, I read a spiritual reading which sort of focuses my attention that day, because otherwise I might start waking up feeling terribly anxious, and that my whole meaning and purpose is determined by what other people think of me and what I want. And the phone, of course, exacerbates that condition. So I look at these books. Many of my books that I look at are sort of 12-step oriented. I read them things. It's usually stuff like, remember you're in a box of space and time, but this is not the totality of all reality. We are living within a limited animalistic perspective, and all possible realities are not held within the framework of human consciousness and the portals into it. At least that's how I interpret those readings. They sometimes are a bit more florid and a little more, sometimes they're sort of somewhat more Christian sounding. But I read something like that, then I meditate. I learned transcendental meditation via the David Lynch Foundation. It's an excellent tool for meditation. And it's a type of mantra meditation, which means you repeat a word, you return to a word. You don't get all baffled that you continue to think and stuff, because that's a part of the meditative process and experience. Someone said to me once, if you stop thinking, it means you've died. But in transcendental meditation, there are moments of what they would, of course, describe as transcendence, where you are free from the narrativizing mind. You become aware of a kind of vibrant nothingness that is transcendent of your identity. Although, let me be honest, even after many years of doing this practice, there are still times when I think you're just sitting with your eyes closed thinking. You don't judge it and evaluate it, for that simply compounds the problem. You return to the mantra. This I do for 20 minutes. After that, I recite a series of mental prayers so that I don't end up praying for sort of selfish things. Then I move into gratitude. Then I move into, I think about the day ahead and the situations and relationships I'm likely to encounter, and I think about how I want to behave in those situations, with a focus on very basic spiritual ideas such as compassion, kindness, and awareness. Awareness is the key. Create a state of awareness for the upcoming day, and notice over the course of it how many times you go unconscious when you are agitated, aggravated, irritable, frustrated, aroused, either sexually or otherwise, in a sort of state of excitation or desire. If you jump into the movie, then you kind of have lost contact with this sort of aspect of self that is elevated beyond personal need, a kind of place of awareness. If you look at it sort of, I would say, I don't know, from a somewhat Buddhist perspective, i.e. there's not a sort of pantheon or monolithic Godhead figure anywhere in the philosophy, just a relationship with the present, remaining absolutely present, not mediating each moment through your personal dislikes and likes, not continually curating your reality according to transient and transitory desires. If you just stay in the present, notice how easy it is to be pulled out of it by, oh, I wonder what that person meant by that. Oh, I wonder if that kind of stuff. I ensure that each day contains, at foremost and primarily at the beginning of the day, time set apart. It can be difficult, as I say, because I'm a member of a family and I, like any of us, have certain obligations. But in our family, it's part of the way that the ecology of our family runs is that I am allowed to have that time. I think it's because of the awareness that I'm a person in recovery, and that if I don't get my head straight, that can be kind of a bit difficult to live with. I hope that doesn't come across as petulant, but that once you enter into recovery, awareness, awakening, there has to be some regard for the inner life, for the psychic landscape. If not, it affects negatively my ability to work and my ability to be present and useful in my relationships with my family and my friends. Each day I try to do some exercise. As you know, I'm somewhat fortunate in that I can exercise. I can do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example, because I can afford it. and I can do sort of like other exercise things on Zoom or an other medium to, like for fitness, because I feel like embodiment is vital and important. And like yoga, for example, is obviously about extending your awareness to every part of your body so that you function in an aware manner. I heard recently that the answer is awareness, 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 awareness. Remain aware, become aware, pursue practices that enhance your awareness, whether it's a martial art, if you're in a position where you can do it. I know that there are socially distanced martial arts courses happening now, or some other kind of exercise, but something that brings you into yourself, that doesn't distract you from yourself. A lot of my time, I've got dogs and I've got kids, you know, not necessarily in that order, but there's requirements on my time. I've got, like, that dog needs walking, he needs attention, he needs feeding. I've got children that I have to stay present with, and obviously there are pretty practical, functional things around getting them to school, getting them fed, all that kind of stuff. But those things are a privilege to me, coming as I do from a background where there was not that kind of structure. Any person that's been through addiction recognises that there's only structure is provided by the requirement to serve the addiction. So to have the luxury to operate within a family where I'm not economically deprived, which is not how my early life was, it was defined by economic deprivation, to live in a situation where I'm not under that pressure, to be in this pandemic and to be relatively free from anxieties about physical health, even though mental health is something that I'll always have to be aware of, I recognise could be regarded as a privilege. Although in my ideology, all of us would live with individual freedom, and the fact that so many people don't does not mean that those that have that facility are privileged, but those without it are living in a kind of tyranny that ought be ended. Notably and importantly for me, my own awareness and awakening and self-care is purposed in directed service. What I mean to say is that every day I have to ensure that I do things for other people. I'm in a 12-step program, so part of it is being available for other people. I'm lucky that I've been in recovery for a long time, so I know a lot of people in recovery, and they are the people that I sort of prioritise, not including my family, of course, because I know how to help people that are recovering from addiction. I know how to be of service in that situation. I try to participate in groups, whether online or physically and socially distanced, also as frequently as I can. Likely this will be 2 or 3 times a week in a sort of post or COVID world, or, you know, during a COVID world. So that's what my life consists of. Familial obligation, professional obligation, like, you know, doing this stuff and providing content and other areas of my life, which is often built around writing. When it comes to writing, I create a little bit of time, a window of time when I'm be left alone without a phone, with and try, as John Cleese says, to invite a spirit of play into it. John Cleese is amazing on creativity, and the results speak for themselves, I would say. So, like, yeah. That's how I approach creativity. I need things to be sort of quite scheduled and quite structured, because I'm a person that I need structure and schedules in order to be free within them. I need discipline, spiritual discipline in particular, to remain stable, because my tendency has always been towards chaos. Maybe not always, but, you know, certainly as a drug addict. So that is the way I live my life. Prayer, meditation, duty, obligation, service to others, and self-care, both through sort of meditation and prayer, but also through sort of exercise. I don't really socialise very much, but who does these days? Like a lot of men, I find it hard to prioritise friendships, and were it not for the kind of relationships I have in 12-step programs, I think that I'd be a lot more isolated. But those programs sort of prohibit isolation, because they recognise that connection is a necessary requirement for those of us in recovery. And I recognise that this is something that's going to be required for more and more people, as the model of addiction is utilised to help us understand our relationship with technology, our relationship with work, our relationship with one another. By addiction, I mean unconscious attachment to behaviours, patterns, habits that are detrimental, and even though we would like to change them, we are unable to. Think about that in regard to your phone use or whatever. So I'm very lucky to have this sort of 12-step recovery rubric as a mainstay for my approach to life. I hope that answers your question. Person who asked me how I spend a day of my life. I always go to bed too late. I always end up watching more telly than I intended to. I always end up reading too much about football. I always end up looking at my phone too much. I always spend up too much time getting sleep out of the corner of my dog's eyes and talking to him like this. Oh no, what happened to you? Did somebody come to you at school? And talking to him about imaginary narratives. Did you get rejected in the workplace? Did you go to a fancy dress competition, but it wasn't actually fancy dress? You were the only one wearing fancy dress. These things have to be done as well. But those are the things that I've already listed and described are the things that I hope will be useful to you.